In the middle of the night, bounty hunter Hub arrives at a motel and looks at a wanted poster for Jeb. After gearing up, Hub bangs on the door and says he's a bail enforcement bondsman, so Jeb must come out with his hands up. The TV and lights are turned off in the room, but Jeb just tells him to go away. Refusing to give up, Hub takes the grate off the air vent and using a hook, he drops a wasp nest into the room. Soon Jeb comes out to escape from the wasps and Hub catches him with the hook. However, he discovers this isn't Jeb, it's Billy Earl, who sent a fake tip to make Hub come to the motel. Suddenly Billy's brother Clyde Earl shoots Hub in the back, knocking him down. Then Clyde slits Hub's throat to kill him. In the morning, a very dead Hub wakes up in a space between walls and freaks out. Because of the hole in his neck, he can't shout for help. He starts punching the wall and makes a hole big enough to fall into Billy's motel room. When he looks in the mirror, Hub is shocked to see the state of his neck, which proves he shouldn't be alive now. He also has a claw-like bruise on his arm. At that moment he hears a voice outside and notices his guns are gone. Tater enters the room and screams when he sees Hub, who punches him and hits him with the door to then tackle him, stealing his gun in the process. When he lights a cigarette, smoke comes out of the hole in his neck. Tater admits he was hired by the Earl brothers to burn the place down for the insurance and they stole Hub's truck. He also swears Hub was dead last night. A furious Hub cuffs Tater and throws him in the trunk of his car, asking him to tell the Earl brothers he's coming for them. Then Hub takes some tape from the car and puts it around his neck before leaving. After driving for a while, he stops to wait for a train to pass and checks on his wound, noticing that it's slowly closing up. Eventually he reaches his home and rushes to the bathroom to check his scar again, only to see that his neck is completely healed. After washing up he checks on his mother Kitty and is upset to find her hanging out with Pastor Ron, who banned Kitty from his church. He's willing to let her return if Hub promises to stop arresting wanted people during Sunday services, but Hub responds with rudeness and Ron leaves. Hub asks Kitty why Billy is out of prison and she informs him Lucky bailed him out. Realizing Lucky wants him dead, Hub modifies some arrest documents to make it look like Lucky is a wanted man. His answering machine keeps getting calls from a company named Pot O Gold, so he disconnects his phone, only for all his burner cell phones to start getting the same calls instead. Afterward he goes to the local bar. When he sees Lucky, he follows him backstage and tries to confront him, but he's interrupted by his son Cade and his ex Marianne, who is currently dating Lucky. Hub tells them he has a warrant on Lucky, but Marianne doesn't believe him and rushes to her dressing room. After telling Lucky that he wants his truck back, Hub follows Marianne and tries to explain that Lucky hired men to kill him. However, since he doesn't have any scars, Marianne doesn't believe this either. Their conversation is interrupted when Cade comes in saying someone named Goldpot keeps calling the club with an urgent message, but Hub ignores it. Before he leaves, Marianne asks him to sign a form so she can take Cade to another state for an audition and Hub only says he'll think about it. Then Hub tries looking for Lucky but he's already gone. While driving off, Hub notices the lights flickering in the local church. Ron is at the door and Hub is shocked to see his eyes glowing like pits of darkness. As he drives away, Ron follows him. Eventually Hub makes it to a cabin in the woods and sees Lucky's car outside. The third Earl brother called Tiny is nearby relieving himself. Hub checks on Tater and confirms that Lucky hired the Earls, so he approaches Tony with his gun out. Tiny is shocked to see Hub alive and confirms his theory. Lucky isn't here, Tiny brought the car as bait, and his brothers are inside. Next Hub takes Tiny into the cabin and kicks him through the door before shooting Billy's fingers off. He tells the brothers to text Lucky and ask him for more money for killing Hub as a way to set a trap. While they wait for Lucky, the lights in the cabin start flickering and Clyde looks out the window to see Ron coming. Hub sends him out, telling him to get rid of the pastor. As the light flickering gets worse, Clyde tells Ron to leave only to end up screaming instead. When Hub peers through a crack in the door, he sees Clyde being thrown across the room and getting stuck on a wall. Clyde's body starts twisting into unnatural shapes while Billy levitates on his chair. Suddenly Billy is thrown at the door, which crushes his skull. Hub takes another peek and a demonic Ron looks back at him. A terrified Hub opens fire through the door until he is out of bullets, but the doorknob won't stop shaking. Then Hub escapes through the back door and crosses the forest until he reaches the road, where he takes a cab back to town. When Hub gets home, he finds Kitty chatting with Midge, who is here about his orientation for Pot O Gold. He tries to turn her down but Midge gets his attention when she says that he died and went to hell. Pot O Gold has brought him back but it's only temporary and Midge is like his parole officer. He's been resurrected to do more bounty hunting, but instead of criminals now he has to hunt demons. A flashback shows that last night Ron had been perfectly normal and even used holy water to tidy his hair. When the power went out, he checked the fuse box and turned it back on. Suddenly something flickered on a mirror and sparks appeared on the altar candles. Suddenly a poster with his face started burning and a demon's face appeared on a mirror. Ron grabbed a cross and started reciting the Bible while throwing holy water at all his mirrors, causing them to break. The lights continued to flicker and the holy water began to boil, so when Ron reached for more he was electrocuted and his eyes burned. He fell dead with half of his face burned down, but in a few seconds he woke up and his face quickly healed. In the present, Hub turns Midge down thinking it's a scam. Midge takes out a recorder and asks Hub for confirmation of refusal, but he doesn't dare to say it. Kitty wonders why her son would end up in hell, but Midge tells her that's for him to share. Then she explains demons have been escaping from hell and Hub's job is to send them back. Since he was there himself, now he can see them in the real world. Demons kill her hosts before possessing them, so Hub won't be killing any humans. If Hub fails his mission, he'll be sent to hell too. Meanwhile, Lucky makes it to the cabin and finds the bodies of the three brothers. Nearby he finds a car and checks the trunk to find Tater, who tells him Hub is behind everything. At Hub's home, a fax arrives from Pot O'Gold with the name of his first demon objective and the coordinates to find him. Searching these coordinates online shows them the local church, so Hub has to tell his mother about Ron. Kitty insists she wants to come, so together they go to investigate the church. They find the building with no power, all the destruction from last night, and Ron's half-face on the ground. Not wanting his family to be exposed to a demon, Hub goes to the bar and gives Marianne the signed form so they can leave the state. Later at home, Kitty asks Hub why he was sent to hell. Hub says he has no idea and that it must have been a mistake. Kitty blames herself and thinks she must have been a bad mother. She cries as she rushes out of the room. Hub follows her and comforts her with a hug. Remembering the flickering lights, Hub calls a friend at the power company and learns that there have been surges at the recycling plant. Hub gears up and once again Kitty insists on coming along. When they reach the recycling plant, Hub wants Kitty to stay in the car, but she reminds him she used to bounty hunt too, so she's helping. After making a plan, they go inside and Hub finds a trail of blood with a triangle. When he looks up, he finds a dead worker hanging as an upside-down cross. Suddenly Hub's flashlight breaks and he starts floating. A demonic Ron comes out of the shadows and throws him against the wall while the lights flicker and the truck radio starts on its own. Hub runs to hide, and when Ron tries to follow him, he steps on Kitty's bear trap. Next, Hub shoots him with a tranquilizer and Kitty tries to exorcise him, but neither has any effect. When Hub tries real bullets, they don't do anything either, and Ron responds by throwing objects at him. Ron comes closer, but before he can attack Hub, his body is sent flying by a shot from Kitty's shotgun. It appears the demon is gathering strength to rise again, so Hub pushes some machinery to crush his head. The lights turn on normally while Ron's body catches on fire. The flames soon begin spreading, so the duo goes away, unaware that Tater has been spying on them all along. The next day, Deirdre is crying as she makes a video describing how a friend has been harassing her. When she finishes the stream, it's revealed it was all a lie as a way to get back at the girl currently dating Deirdre's ex. She hears a noise in her bathroom and discovers the water running in the shower, but nobody in it. Deirdre turns the water off, but when she walks away, the shower turns on again. All the taps in the bathroom start doing the same, and when she tries to turn them off, she sees a demon in the mirror. Suddenly she begins to float and her body is pushed into the tub, where she drowns. Meanwhile, Hub gets a message from Pot O'Gold congratulating him on completing his first mission. He looks at Lucky's police file from Boston and asks Kitty to keep an eye on the fax before he leaves. When Hub makes it to Lucky's house, he finds him taking Care to school. He offers to do it himself and Lucky complains, but Marianne thinks it's a great idea. Hub lets Cade drive even though he doesn't have a permit and pulls out the police file to tell his son about Lucky's history with the mob. Cade has trouble concentrating on the road but manages to tell Hub that he already knows about Lucky's criminal past. Now Cade thinks his dad faked wanting to spend time with him and only did this to talk badly about Lucky. At that moment, Kitty calls with a new mission and tells him about a demon that should be kept away from water. Hub tells Cade he's skipping school and makes him drive to the coordinates. They arrive at Deirdre's house and Hub makes Cade stay in the car as his lookout. Hub goes to the back door and notices water pouring down from the second floor. He picks the lock to go inside and finds the bathroom flooding. There also are bloodstains on the walls. On his way out, Hub concludes he's hunting the teenager that lives there, and Cade confirms this is the house of popular girl Deirdre, who he knows from school. In the meantime, Tater shows Lucky pictures of the bodies in the recycling plant. He makes theories about dark magic and witches, causing Lucky to yell at him. While Hub and Cade drive around town, Hub notices all kinds of water sources going crazy. He marks them on a map and realizes the demon is going to the county pool. The duo rushes there and Hub uses a locker room window to get in. The place is already flooding and noises can be heard in other rooms. Hub continues his search and finds the dead janitor at the bottom of the pool. 3 flotation tubes are above him forming a triangle. Suddenly a possessed Deirdre grabs Hub's foot and makes him fall into the pool. Then she starts pushing him down to try to drown him. Hub fights back and manages to stab her face with his knife, but Deirdre continues to push him and Hub starts to lose consciousness. However, the dead janitor nearby reminds him he wants to live and he stabs Deirdre again, this time in the eye. This kills the demon and now Hub can resurface. Soon the body is burning underwater. On his way out, Hub sees a Sheriff Ruby coming, so he hides behind the front desk. While Ruby tries to find a way in, Cade calls his dad to ask what to do and Hub tells him to leave without him. Then Hub uses the desk phone to call 911 and tells them about a drunk teenager driving around, giving them the description of his own truck. Ruby is informed of this and leaves to chase after Cade. Now Hub can get the surveillance system's hard drive to hide the evidence that he was there. Meanwhile, Lucky shows up at Kitty's house and she receives him with her shotgun. Lucky says he's only trying to protect his family and drops a file before leaving. When Kitty opens it, she finds pictures of what happened at the recycling plant. Later, Marianne frees Cade from police custody. When Hub arrives, Marianne yells at him and a huge argument ensues. It turns out Cade will start a music career with support from his mother, and Hub is angry because he wasn't supposed to start until he was 18. Marianne and Cade think he's just jealous because his own career failed, and they leave while thinking lowly of him. When Hub gets home, he thinks about what happened a month ago. In the forest near his house, he dug a hole and buried the body of a woman named Cheryl. Sometime later, Deputy Briggs takes money from a food truck owner, threatening to arrest him for stealing this truck if he complains to his superiors. When Briggs gets in his car, he notices a demon in his rearview mirror, but it's gone when he turns around. Suddenly something grabs him and a steam of dirt enters his mouth to choke him. His hands are forced to move violently and he self-deletes. Then he wakes up possessed. At home, Hub watches an old tape of him and Marianne performing at the bar. When he looks out the window, he imagines Cheryl is there staring at him. Kitty gets a gun ready by grinding off the serial number. She also reveals she has some illegal crystals in her safe. At that moment, a fax arrives informing Hub about an earth demon. When he asks Kitty if she wants to come, he realizes she's left. Hub follows the coordinates and finds an abandoned police car. When he asks the food truck owner, he learns the car belongs to Briggs, who walked off an hour ago. In the meantime, Cade is having second thoughts about performing. Marianne blames it on Hub and Lucky tries to tell her that her ex isn't a good person, but Marianne doesn't like when her men insult each other. He wants to show her the pictures, but they're interrupted when an employee says Lucky's car is on fire. Everyone in the bar runs out to stop the fire, which was caused by Kitty. While they're distracted, she sneaks into Lucky's office and hides the gun in the crystal bag. At that moment, she gets a call from Hub, who tells her about the blood in Briggs' car. He's already called the police station and they track Briggs' radio, so he'll be going after him. After hanging up, Kitty bumps into Marianne, who knows that putting smoke in a car to simulate fire is a family trick. Kitty asks her to talk to Hub for the details, which Marianne accepts. After Kitty leaves through the back door, Marianne tracks Hub's phone and follows him to a hardware store. She starts yelling at him and tells him about Kitty's trick, but they're interrupted by a weird noise. Hub makes her leave, but on her way out, Marianne notices a trail of dirt that takes her to a big mound. When she looks behind it, she's horrified to discover a body. Hub immediately stops her from screaming while noticing there's a security camera. He tries to bring Marianne out, but in another corridor they find Briggs pouring dirt on the floor. Seeing the uniform, Marianne asks for help and reveals their location. Briggs turns around looking like a demon, but Marianne only sees a normal face. Hub opens fire and Marianne moves away when Briggs starts walking on the walls. The cop tackles Hub and they fight on the floor, so Marianne grabs a pickaxe and stabs Briggs in the back. As soon as the demon turns around, Hub shoots him in the head. While the body starts burning on its own, the duo runs out of the store. Later at home, Marianne washes off the blood while Hub realizes that Briggs had been making a triangle out of dirt. All the triangles so far had sacrifices in the middle, so he calls Midge to pass on this information. Midge freaks out because he secretly got her number and tells him not to call again since that's her family home. Afterward, Hub explains everything to Marianne, who doesn't understand why he went to hell. She also realizes Lucky did kill him and laughs because it means he didn't change like he promised. Hub asks her to leave the state with Cade so they can be safe and says that when everything is over, he'd like to fix all his mistakes. Marianne surprises him with a hug before they're interrupted by a call from Kitty. The duo goes to the bar and watches Lucky getting arrested thanks to Kitty's planted evidence. Marianne talks to him, but he still claims he didn't hire the Earls. Using what Kitty told her, Marianne informs Lucky that if he tries to get Hub's family in trouble with the pictures, then the cops will think Lucky was part of the crime too, because the shotgun that Kitty planted is the one that killed Ron. Later, Marianne and Hub have to tell Cade that they won't bail Lucky out. Hub gives his son his blessing for his career and they hug. After saying goodbye to his family, Hub joins Kitty, who is learning from Ruby that Gribbs died in a store fire. Ruby wants to know why Hub had been looking for Gribbs and he says he just found his abandoned car. After Ruby leaves, Kitty worries about the store's security cameras, but Hub is sure the fire burned them down. At the local lake, a couple is trying to celebrate their engagement when a man shows up in a monster truck to do some fishing. The boyfriend asks him if they can have just an hour alone, but the fisherman refuses to leave and punches him. They start fighting on the ground while two demons appear inside a car and start inflating the truck's tires until they explode. The woman is knocked down and when she looks up, she discovers the truck has fallen on top of the men. She runs to check on the bodies and finds them split in two, yet they open their eyes to look at her. At the bar, Lucky returns from jail and starts drinking after throwing away his 9-month sobriety chip. He tells everyone that Hub tried setting him up and failed, then he tries to buy the bartender's truck. Meanwhile, Hub finds her mother's book on demons and notices a diagram for a ritual. He tears it off and adds it to his research board. Combining it with the locations of the triangles so far proves that the demons are trying to form a pentagram. So far the demons have used spirit, earth, and water, so only fire and air are left. A flashback shows that 9 years ago, Midge was a very successful pastry chef. During a house party, Midge discovered that her son Benji stopped breathing. After a visit to the hospital, she learned that Benji had rapidly spreading cancer, but the insurance company wouldn't cover the treatment. In desperation, she had to sell most of her things, leaving the house with only the basic necessities. It still wasn't enough, so she started to consider selling a kidney, but while browsing for information she found an ad for Pot O Gold saying they offered full medical benefits. She clicked on it and the leprechaun logo started moving on the screen, making it glitch. Then an application appeared and filled itself with all her information, including a clause that promised Benji would be cured. The leprechaun kept repeating selling your soul while Midge submitted the application. The next day Midge was visited by Cosmo, who brought her a fax machine. He told her that if people asked how Benji got better, she should never mention Pot O Gold. Her new job was to recruit new souls for the company and she had a quota to fill, of which a third would be credited to him as her supervisor. The new souls would bring credits for her, which meant this was a pyramid scheme. Midge was hesitant, but when Cosmo reminded her of Benji's incoming early death, she signed the contract. He also needed her thumbprint and the ink box pricked her thumb to make her use blood. Afterward Midge started to see images from hell in her mirrors and Cosmo's true form, which was an old man. A claw-like bruise appeared on her arm and Cosmo showed her he had the same thing. In the present, Midge is happily baking with a very healthy Benji. The doorbell app tells her that Hub is at her door, so she grabs her gun before meeting him. Hub reveals that he did research and knows about her story, so Midge explains that when she tried to quit Pot O Gold, Benji's cancer came back. Hub shows his sympathies but still tries to show her his theory about the demons. Midge doesn't care for anything other than her son's safety and threatens to shoot if he doesn't leave. Hub drops the folder before driving away. During the trip he calls Kitty and learns the air demon is on the loose. He also notices that Marianne is tracking his phone and likes to think she misses him. Moments later Hub arrives at the lake and finds the abandoned vehicles plus the blood where the bodies used to be. Since there's nobody around he decides to head east because that's where the air corner is on the pentagram. In the evening Hub is watching a bridge and sees the two possessed men carrying the woman. He opens fire and hits one of the men, but the other uses the lady as a shield. Hub continues to shoot at the first man, who is currently climbing the bridge. Suddenly a truck appears behind him and hits his car, causing it to flip over. When Hub finally wakes up he tries to reach his fallen gun, only for Lucky to step on his hand before kicking his head. The next day Kitty finds her son's car but not a person in sight. She spies on the police radio and hears about a murder, so she rushes to the scene of the crime, but it's only the dead woman from the lake. Ruby sees her and thinks it's weird Kitty is so far from town this early in the morning while wearing a vest. When Hub wakes up, he finds himself in his underwear and handcuffed to a bench in his own home cell. He hears his phone ringing and the answering machine picks up a message from Midge, who has looked at the file and admits he's right. Lucky is there too and starts ranting about what a loser Hub is, not understanding how a guy like him could get Marianne. He steps on Hub's hand and hits his fingers with a hammer before turning to the camera. It turns out he's recording this for Marianne. He admits he hired the Earls to kill Hub, but he also claims that Hub tried to kill him first. When Hub says he's lying, Lucky asks him to share what happened to Cheryl. Hub refuses, so Lucky keeps breaking his fingers with the hammer. A flashback shows that a month ago, Hub visited Lucky at the bar and tried to convince him to leave Marianne because nobody ever truly left the criminal life. Lucky insisted he was clean, but Hub went on a rant, threatening to kill Lucky by framing him as a rat to his old gang. Then Hub punched Lucky and Tiny had to kick him out while Lucky told him he crossed a line. Outside, Tiny kicked Hub a couple of times and asked him to run. Later that night Hub was waiting in his car for Tiny to leave while drinking a lot. With a gun in hand, he entered the bar and saw a shadow with Lucky's hat, so he immediately shot it. However, when he took a closer look he discovered he shot Cheryl. Hub tried to stop the bleeding but Cheryl still died under his hands. Lucky was in the office upstairs and saw Hub's car driving away at great speed. He rushed to the other room and found the hat, a freshly mopped floor, and tons of cellophane. In the present Lucky insists Hub has to confess, but Hub only gives him the finger and Lucky answers with his hammer again. Meanwhile Marianne and Cade finish recording their first song together. At that moment she gets a call from Ruby, who wants to know if she had been at the hardware store. Marianne says she went there to buy a new fuse and that she was alone. Ruby hangs up, but she has a shot from the security camera showing Marianne and Hub in the store before the fire. At home, Hub hears the door and thinks it's Kitty, so Lucky goes out to distract her. However, he finds the possessed fisherman at the door and the other man on the ceiling before he gets pounced on. Hub takes advantage of his broken hand to slip it out of the handcuffs and uses the hammer to break the other pair. The demons are beating Lucky up, so he has no choice but to open fire, but the bullets do nothing. Lucky tries hiding under a car, but the fisherman drags him out and throws him against a cabinet. Hub sees all this and rushes to grab a gun only to find the other demon on the ceiling behind him. He brings him down with a shot and the fisherman hears it, so he drops Lucky to go after him. When Hub lands a shot on the first demon's head, he finally kills it and the body lights on fire. Then the fisherman tries to attack Hub and he shoots him too, but only hits him in the body and that's his last bullet. While Lucky escapes on his truck, Hub gets a chainsaw and sticks it into the fisherman's head to kill him at last. To protect his house he uses a fire extinguisher to put both fires out. In the evening Kitty comes home and takes care of Hub's hand to avoid a visit to the hospital. He's about to tell her about Cheryl but they're interrupted by the arrival of Marianne and Kate, who now knows about the demons. Marianne told him because she thinks Ruby knows something and they need a plan. Hub shows them the bodies to try to scare Kate off, but he still wants to help the family and Kitty admits they need some extra hands. The family agrees to clean this mess together. The next day a boy is playing in the playground when an invisible force suddenly creates a trail of ashes on the grass and makes the kid disappear. In the meantime Marianne is still helping Hub clean. Kitty and Kate left with the bodies, which will be cremated at the funeral home. Hub knows the employees won't call the cops because Kitty has information about the funeral home's criminal activities. Suddenly they hear a ringtone and discover Lucky left his phone behind. Marianne knows the password and unlocks it, but Hub tells her that Lucky recorded his torture so she drops it. When she leaves the room, Hub destroys the phone with a hammer. After Kitty and Kate come home, the fax drops the information on the latest demon. It can manipulate fire just like Hub predicted. Following the graphic he's been making on the map, he deduces the final sacrifice will happen at the new housing development. The family wonders what will happen to Hub when he kills the last demon and Kitty makes them pray. At that moment Midge arrives and shows them the results of her research. If the demons complete the ritual they will summon one of the shackled 7 former angels that joined Lucifer's rebellion against God. The family organizes an evacuation plan for the housing development. In a church, Lucky tries talking to God about what he saw while Tater points out he was right about the black magic. Lucky concludes that God gave him his bad temper to prepare him to fight Hub as a holy warrior and asks for a sign. Tater's phone begins ringing and he explains the police keeps trying to make him talk about the Earls, but he swears he isn't a rat. However Lucky sees this as the sign. Midge and Hub's family dress as firemen and go around the housing development telling people they need to evacuate because there's a house leak. Midge uses a mirror to see people's real forms and confirm they aren't possessed. One of the neighbors refuses to leave without his doll collection and opens fire, so the group runs to hide. They don't want to save this creepy guy but they have no choice otherwise the demon will use him for the ritual. Hub sneaks into the house and waits for the man to check on his dolls to catch him by surprise. He knocks him out with a taser and drags him out of the house. Then Midge goes in to clear the house and finds the boy from the playground. He only stares awkwardly at her so she uses her mirror and confirms he's the demon. She takes her gun but can't bring herself to shoot a child. Suddenly fire lines appear on the ground and the house collapses into a sinkhole. Since this kills Midge, the ritual is now complete. That night Hub thanks his family for helping and they share a hug. While waiting for the end to come, they all play some music together. Afterward Marianne kisses Hub and they end up getting naughty. At that police station, Lucky gets Ruby to promise she won't touch Marianne and in exchange he gives her the pictures of the recycling plant. Moments later Hub receives a fax telling him to hunt down a demon called Lilith. The coordinates match his backyard so he rushes to Cheryl's grave and finds it empty. A flashback reveals that in the middle of the night, a possessed Cheryl rose from the grave. Moving extremely fast, she looked through the window and saw Hub getting busy with Marianne. At that moment she heard a truck nearby, so she released her wings and flew off to land on top of the vehicle. In the present, Hub wakes up after having slept in the forest. When Marianne comes looking for him, he has no choice but to tell her the truth about Cheryl. Then the family gathers to yell at him, but he reminds them they can discuss this later because the priority should be the demon. Marianne admits the demon is the only reason she hasn't called the cops on Hub and leaves with Cade. Moments later Hub is trying to cut some wood and notices the wind shaking the forest, so he thinks someone is here for him. At that moment Cosmo arrives in his van and drops Midge, who looks perfectly fine. She explains she's been sent back to help him finish the job, which will be the last one for both of them. It's also their only chance to save their families because Armageddon is coming. Midge tells him about Lilith, who used to be an angel. Since she was God's favorite, other angels were jealous and tricked her into joining the rebellion so she would be sent to hell. Lilith is known for her amazing voice and as she's very attracted to music, she also has mind control powers. The devil's been enamored of Lilith since she became his prisoner and the last time she escaped, she took out her rage on every man she met. They finally captured her outside an abbey where the monks were chanting, which Midge has a diagram of. Meanwhile Cheryl bursts into a diner and turns up the volume of the jukebox. The locals run to call the police because they recognize her from missing posters. When a man touches her shoulder, Cheryl controls the minds of every man in the room and forces them to self-delete. Then she makes the women bow to her. At the same time Lucky and the cops surround Kitty's house. She surrenders while the cops search the house but they can't find Hub. There isn't blood anywhere and the cops start to doubt Lucky's story, so he points at Hub's demon board as proof. Soon the cops also arrest Marianne and Lucky tells Cade he did it to protect him, but Cade swears he won't testify against his parents which means nobody will believe Lucky's demon story. Kitty and Marianne try to tell Ruby that Hub is saving the world but they aren't taken seriously. Ruby threatens to arrest Cade as well so Marianne agrees to call Hub and leaves a message asking him to meet. In the woods far from town, Hub starts unpacking an amp system because he thinks he can attract Lilith by blasting music. He saw a pentagram on the picture of the Abbey and has concluded he can use one to send Lilith back. They make twig runes and put them inside coffee cans to form the pentagram points, then they join them with wires and cover everything with leaves and dirt. Hub's worried about Lilith's mind control powers, but Midge explains they won't work on people who have been to hell. As soon as Hub starts playing music, Cheryl leaves the diner. The women go back to normal and scream when they see the bodies of the men. Cheryl flies to the woods and lands outside the pentagram. Hub comes out of hiding with his gun, but Cheryl moves behind him and starts throwing him around, smashing his head against the car and a tree. Then she picks Hub up right above the pentagram, so Midge activates the trap. The lines form walls of power and Cheryl panics, so she drops Hub on the car and tries to fly away. However, the trap keeps her in place. Next, Cheryl lands against the car and pretends to be an innocent woman begging Hub not to kill her again. Hub can tell she's not Cheryl, so Lilith's voice tells him that if he lets her go, she'll let Cheryl live and Hub won't go to hell. As she talks, she heals all of Hub's wounds. He rushes to grab his gun, but when Lilith mentions his family, he decides to take the deal. Lilith transfers herself into a crow and Hub's bruises disappear from his arm. Then he breaks the seal and the crow flies away. Midge insults him, but Hub promises he'll find a way to fix it later. Cheryl returns to normal and doesn't understand what happened. That evening, Hub takes Cheryl to the bar so she can reunite with her friends. Hub gives Lucky the finger before telling his family that he's free from hell, but Ruby interrupts him to arrest him. A devastated Marianne rushes to her dressing room to cry in private and notices the crow perching on her hanger. When Lucky comes to check on her, he finds the room destroyed and Marianne singing in front of the mirror. He tries to approach her, but Marianne is possessed and pushes him away. With her power, she forces Lucky to self-delete. In the main room, Hub watches the crow fly away. At that moment, Marianne walks on the stage and starts singing to control the crowd. All the women cross their arms and the men get their hands ready to self-delete except for Hub. Lilith reveals herself to Hub and tells him he has no choice but to serve her if he wants to keep Marianne safe. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.